Can you say hard hats, folks? Hard hats, lunch pail, steel-toe boots?
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure.
Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jalen.
Can I close it, John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do?
Hey, Bobby Manning here. Welcome to another Garden Report Celtics postgame show. Sherrod Blakely joining me remote. I'm here at TD Garden where the Celtics won again. A 30-point advantage, slipped down to 4 pretty quickly in the second half as the Celtics went all the way to the back of their bench in this one. All the regular contributors setting out, Tillman and Cornette among them. So that led to a Queta spot start, Lonnie Walker and Jordan Walsh getting into the starting unit along with Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser, who always play. So good things, positive things to pull from this one. Definitely got a little shakier the deeper you got into the bench here in this one, but on the wing, Lonnie Walker, another strong game. Got up to 9 for 1 point between last game and this game before finishing, I believe, 8 of 15 in this one. So strong stuff from him, about 30 minutes overall for him. Joe said yesterday, after all the positive things he did in Saturday's game, that he was going to get plenty of opportunity in this one. And he came through a couple threes early, an acrobatic finish for a second chance bucket after Queta's offensive rebound on one of those early plays. And just kept finding spots to score on the floor, which is what he does, which is what you knew he was capable of coming into this team. And does it draw him any closer to making this roster? I don't know. But the work he's put in this preseason showing the perseverance through some of these other stops that didn't work out. Obvious, but still that he can go to Maine, work on some of the other parts of his game, try to fit in here and work his way up the way some other younger players have.
Yeah, Lonnie's in a really awkward predicament here right now because, when he goes to Maine, he's clearly going to be one of, if not the best player on the floor almost every night. He is definitely one of those guys that you can see in the G League who, frankly, shouldn't be in the G League. He's an NBA player. He's an NBA rotational type of player. And yet he is with a Boston Celtics team where there is no clear path for him to play, even if they were to guarantee his contract. There's no guarantee that he get minutes. And it's no knock against him. And it says everything about how deep this team is. So these are the kind of games that I think serve as a reminder to anyone and everyone as to how good a player Lonnie is and just how big a head scratcher it is that of the 29 other teams in the NBA, not one of them had enough foresight to maybe offer this guy a guaranteed deal, because we're going to see very quickly this year there's going to be a significant number of teams that are going to have this need for a shot-making wing. And you're going to say, wow, gee, there aren't any wings out there. And it's like, yeah, there was one that was out there who was literally just sitting there for anyone for the taking. And he had to settle for an Exhibit 10 contract, which to me is insane when you look at his skill set, you look at his talent, you look at his experience. He's a 25-year-old who's been in the league like 6-7 years. That's not normal. And so Lonnie, again, to me, with Lonnie Walker, it's just another example of the rich getting richer when you look at what he can do, what he brings to the table, and what the Celtics already have on stock.
Yeah, and tonight more of the Walker we know, the scorer, the shooter, that sort of thing. I think yesterday's game you saw some of the passing, you saw some of the little things come through. I'm interested to hear what Joe thought of his performance here overall, because I think it's the other things that they're looking for. They want him to be a secondary contributor and all the little ways, and that's where Jordan Walsh, I thought, shined again in this game. Mm-hmm. Good to get the shooting from him where you get it, but playing close to the basket, finishing around the rim, being patient on the dribble, and the 10 rebounds, especially that one where he and got Peterson the 2 free throws right before the end of the third quarter. Things Joe loves and that I think Joe's going to notice among these guys who are fighting for spots on the edge of the roster and minutes at that like 10th, 11th, 12th man spot. This is what they need alongside their scorers and their creators and all the other stuff they have at the front end of the roster, is a guy to come there and grab these offensive rebounds, clean up shots around the rim and take advantage of space that's out there for him. You still don't see the shooting, even though he is floating around 40% for this preseason, limited number of shots. Still doesn't feel like he has great shooting in him. But all the other stuff is starting to show, along with a patient approach, along with less erratic play that we saw over the summer.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing with him is that he looks like a guy who's figured out how to slow down and let the game come to him. I thought, last season, whenever he got out on the floor, he was going 120 miles an hour in a 65 zone. Clearly just so excited and energetic and hyped when he was out there. And now he's still bringing you energy, but it's controlled energy. It's more focused energy. It seems to be he's figured out how to channel all that, that high energy that we know is in him in a positive way without just being all over the damn map with it. So his shot making, I like to see, because the shots that he's taking and making for the most part are open looks. And that's what you want. And to your point, Bobby, I don't think Jordan Walsh will ever be considered a great shooter, but that doesn't mean he can't be a pretty good one. And to me, his value for this team is the ability to make open shots. If he's able to do that at a relatively high clip or relatively average or slightly above average clip, then he's going to be fine. He's going to be able to help this team, because when you play with guys like Tatum and Brown and Porzingis, Drew Holiday to some extent, Derek White, those guys, when you're on the floor with them, are going to draw more attention than you if your name is Jordan Walsh. And because of that, you may get some opportunities to knock down some wide open looks, and you need to be confident and comfortable in doing that. And that's what this preseason is about for him, is just really figuring out ways that you can be comfortable and confident and connect on opportunities and plays to help this team win. Because you're not going to be playing 20, 25, 30 minutes a night. But if Drew Holiday is having a load management kind of night and maybe there's another injury, you might be called upon to play a more significant role if you're Jordan Walsh. And having the comfort level and just frankly some reps in the preseason to be comfortable when your number is called, that's huge for him.
Yeah, so 6 of 16 for him from three so far this preseason. Again, not a ton of shots to go off, but he did get himself to around 35 up in Maine last year. I think that's what you're looking at from him at the high end, 35, 36, 37, if he can get it going and, find a consistent stroke from three. And a lot of the stuff we continue to hear about him is 3 and D. I actually like when he's playing around the basket. He's so long. He's so agile in there. He just has such great reach up around the rim that whether he's just tapping in offensive rebounds, as we saw at times tonight, reaching past the defender and making that last effort to just put it up and in there, I like him in that spot. And the other thing you have to consider here is, yes, he might be hitting the threes. He might have those stretches where it's there for him, but our defense is respecting it. And that's what really matters at the end of the day. Our team's guarding him. Are they closing out on him? Is he actually pulling defenders away from the basket? And that's what spacing is all about. I think that's a big reason he didn't play a ton last year. And you're still wondering, all right, when he's out there in a real situation on this team alongside some of the, main guys, is he someone who can space the floor for them in that role? Or does he need to be a guy who screens a little bit, rolls a little bit, plays close to the basket? I still think right now in his development, that's where he's stronger. That's where he can actually find a mark on this team. And there actually are, I know people keep comparing him to that O'Shea role. I think there's some parallels there. He's capable of offensive rebounding, maybe not at an O'Shea level, but pretty close. He's capable of cleaning up a lot of messes around the rim and just putting shots up and in. And I think his screening game's come a long way. So I said this to Noah early in the preseason, Sherrod. I don't want the three to be the reason he doesn't play. There's got to be some other ways that they can fit him in there.
Yeah, I think you mentioned one of those ways, which is just being a really elite screener. But in that regard, his ability to knock down open shots is going to be crucial to him getting on the floor, because the guys that he'll be playing with are going to create those opportunities. And I thought we saw tonight what happens when Jordan Walsh knocks down a couple of perimeter shots. All of a sudden, the defense, just by simple instincts, you're going to try to close out on him better. And that allows him to put the ball on the floor. He had a couple of nice finishes around the basket, off the dribble, getting a bounce pass. Yeah, and so his ability to recognize when defenses are reacting to his shot making is critical to his overall development and growth, because those opportunities are going to be there. And the thing that, we sometimes lose sight of is that he's playing with guys in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown who know by the end of the night they are going to get their shots. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And if you have a chance to get a couple of shots off that are relatively easy, whether it's a layup drive or whether it's rolling to the basket, and one of those guys finds you for a potential layup in traffic, figure out ways to contribute in a multitude of areas. That has to be the Jordan Walsh playbook. Finding ways to impact the game in other ways besides scoring, because I do think that his offensive game has improved, and he's a definite better, I think, threat in that regard. But that being said, you still have to figure out, you have to do all those little things, because they have enough guys who can carry the load, so to speak, for these. They need guys who can fill in those gaps, fill in those cracks that, frankly, go overlooked and don't get the credit they deserve, but are important when you're trying to win a championship. And so Jordan Walsh, like I said, I think this was a really good game for him, because I think he did a lot of really good things. The stats are going to jump out for a lot of people, but to me, it was his ability to impact the game. Even when he didn't have the ball, I thought his presence was noticeable out there. And that's, to me, that's the sign of a young player who's understanding how to be an elite, or at least an above average intangible kind of guy.
He's a big pleasant surprise. Here's Joe Mazzulla talking right now after the game.
Any other questions? All right. Good one, and done. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.
Oh, guess we missed Joe. All right, we'll see if there's anything worth playing from him. But plenty of players to come. I'm sure Jordan's going to talk after this one. Lonnie Walker. He spoke in the locker room last night after another strong performance. So plenty of reaction coming from this game as the Celtics head into the late stages of the preseason, resting guys, Tatum, Brown, White, Holiday, Horford, as well as Xavier Tillman, all sat this game out. We are brought to you by PrizePicks. The football weekend's over, but never too early to start looking ahead to next week. Monday game as well, about to get going tomorrow night. So great opportunities to build a weekly fantasy team, a daily fantasy team. And the best part is you're not committed all season. Guys go down, your full season team just gets demolished by injuries, or your team just stinks. So there's a chance to start fresh and do it every week, even every day if you want to. Baseball playoffs are going right now. Plenty of options to build a team, pick more or less on their stat projections, and win. So baseball, as I mentioned, WNBA finals going on right now. This is really the most popping sports time of the year. You got football every week. You got so much going on. Even basketball getting started in about a week from now. And just a teaser, free Anthony Edwards Square coming up. We'll tell you about that more in a couple of days here. But right now, go over there, use the code CLNS, play $5 and get $50 instantly on America's #1 fantasy sports app. PrizePicks, our official daily fantasy sports partner. And best part right now, injury insurance. Guy goes down in the first half, your team stays in play for the second half over at PrizePicks. So go check them out again. Use that code CLNS, play $5, get $50 instantly over at PrizePicks. So Queta got a start in this one, Sherrod. The two things that he still needs to work on flash, and he got a million rebounds here, though a lot of them came on his own misses. That finishing early and often, a couple point blank looks in there he just couldn't put in. Brought me back to that first summer league game he played against the Heat, I think it was, where he's right there and just can't put it in. And you got to be able to convert those, especially when you're the guy they're going to be looking for in the pick and roll there. Now, credit to him for being able to track down a lot of those misses, kick them out, and get some other guys' shots in there. But when the regular season starts, when he's in there in a big spot, those misses are going to matter. And, he's got to be a 60-70% shooter, I'd say. And when he creeps down to closer to 50% or below in this case, that's where it becomes a problem for him on the offensive end. You still see him creating out of the high post, which is nice. You still see him in different positions on defense, and they're looking for that sweet spot. Where's he going to be most impactful on that end of the floor right now? But this one, tough, because he just had some looks in there that, you just got to be able to finish.
Yeah. I mean, if you go back and you watch this game from beginning to end, and you just look at where he was offensively and the opportunities he had, if you didn't watch the end of those particular plays, you'd think he had about 20 points because he had that many really good looks at the basket. He's got to be better in that regard. And part of that is just him getting more experience, getting more comfortable, understanding what he can and cannot do. And the Celtics continue to find ways to keep him involved, keep him engaged, make him an active participant in what they're doing, and do so in a way that involves him being more than just a screener. I think he's one of the better players when it comes to rolling to the basket because he's got really, really good leaping abilities. He's got a good frame to play above the rim. And
the rebounding is awesome too.
Rebounding, I mean, he's in terms of his ability to his first and second jump might be the best, the fastest from 1 to 2 on his team. The fact that he can get off the ground so quickly, and even if he's coming down for a rebound and isn't in position, he's able to get up really quick. It's very Time Lord like in that regard. Yep. And that's great to see if you're the Celtics, because obviously this is a guy that the Celtics, when they signed him this summer, it was clear that they're looking to develop him over time, that they don't expect him to be a finished product right now, which is fine because you've got Al, you've got Luke, you've got Tillman. So you don't necessarily need him to be that guy right now, but you definitely want to see progress. You definitely want to see him become better at some of the little things like finishing at the rim, Bobby. I think you're spot on. I think that's probably his greatest weakness at this point. It's just his ability to consistently finish at the rim on shots that he should be making. On a worst case scenario, this guy should be shooting in the high 50s from the field. Worst case scenario. Because the shot attempts he's going to be getting are all, for the most part, going to be point blank range. He hasn't shown any type of consistent comfort shooting the ball from outside the paint. And that's fine because you got plenty of guys who can shoot mid-range, and can shoot threes, and as well as guys who can stretch the floor from that 4 or 5 spot. You need guys who can score at the basket, at the rim, who can play above the rim at both ends of the floor. And he, in terms of his athleticism, in terms of his ability, is one of the best options they have in that regard.
Yeah, and I'll give him 3 for 7 in this one because one of those was a heave, tossed up a 3 at the end of the shot clock there. So really a 3 for 7 game from Queta inside the arc. The assists, people point out in the chat, good point there too. They have him doing some Cornet-like creation out of the high post, which is encouraging. And there were a couple moments last year where he flashed
Cornet-like creation. What are you doing? Cornet-like creation? Oh.
It's reminiscent. It's reminiscent of what we saw from Cornet the last couple games here, which is exciting. And it's not on the stat sheet here right in front of us, but 1 foul tonight, no fouls in yesterday's game. I believe he had no fouls in the second Nuggets game as well after a couple in that first game. Fouling was a big problem for him last year. I think he had like 5 per 36, close to 6 per 36. So that's going to keep you off the floor if you're doing that. And he hasn't done that this preseason, which is maybe the biggest area of growth for him right now. Yeah. I mean, and that, Bobby, to your point, that's the one thing that will keep you off the floor more than anything else, picking up cheap fouls. Not so much so because it limits the amount of minutes you play, but because it gets that opponent to the free throw line quicker when that happens. So, Queta is getting better. I mean, that's the positive, that there are clear signs that he's getting better from where he was when he first came to Boston to where he's at now. But there are still some areas, particularly at the offensive end of the floor, particularly finishing around the basket, where he has to get better. But I think a couple of folks pointed out, his assist numbers were great. When you've got a big who can get you 5 assists, I don't care whether it's preseason or not, that's something to absolutely be thrilled about, particularly when it's a big where that is not necessarily part of their scouting report. Queta, he plays above the rim. He's athletic. He can block shots. But getting others involved, being a ball distributor, that's not something that you anticipate seeing much of from him. And so give him credit for that. But again, the preseason is about improvement. It's about figuring out where you fit in. And he has to become a better finisher at the rim if he wants to get on the floor. Because he seems to have addressed the whole fouling too much issue. Now the next step is fouling less, which he's doing, and finishing more, which he's not at the level he should. Yeah, and he'll probably be playing in short bursts on most nights when he is getting in there. So that makes the finishing and those limited opportunities that he gets all the more important. He might take only 2-3 shots a game in a shorter run. So it's tough if you miss some shots that you should be making in there. But all the other little areas, the little things, obviously impressing Joe Mazzulla after this game, who praised Queta for taking his role seriously. His defensive awareness, Joe said, and execution has grown, and his offensive effectiveness, his screening and spacing. I love his growth in that area. You saw that from Tillman, too, who didn't play tonight. But I feel like Tillman's gotten better at some of the off-ball screening, some of the positioning and setting up for teammates. It's something that these bigs have to be able to do in this system. And you're starting to see guys resemble some of the growth. As we've talked about, Cornette's been here forever, so he knows all this stuff like the back of his hand. Now you're seeing Queta start to do it a little more. You're seeing Tillman start to do it a little more. That's going to help those guys when they're coming off the bench, or maybe even getting some spot starts if injuries or rests reach a high level here. And, Queta, that's your last line. And it comes to starting center, number of guys are going to have to be injured or resting to have him step into a starting role. But even with him, you're like, you can live with it. He's good enough. He's effective enough. You're not worried if you're putting him out there in a spot start like tonight. And he mostly came through despite those misses. So encouraging stuff from him. Noa Dalzell joining us from the Garden as well here. We've talked about Lonnie. We've talked Walsh, talking Queta now. Noah, who Joe Mazzulla had some praise for. How do you feel about his performance?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of what we know he's capable of. We know he's capable of getting big rebounding numbers. We know he's capable of being physical. I think that there's still a little bit left to be desired as far as finishing around the basket. You saw I think that's continued to be a problem of his, and it was continuing to be a problem today. But generally speaking, I think this is a good environment for him. Kind of lower stakes. He's playing against guys for the most part that I think was better than. So it didn't really change my perspective on anything, but I think he was one of the guys that stood out today.
Yeah, and a good opportunity for him here. There's definitely some room for growth, but you see him working at it. You see him growing with each appearance. And even though there were some mixed results here in this one, I think overall trending in the right direction. And you're probably never going to need him to play this much unless things go really wrong, as we said right before you got in here. But if he does, you're not terrified about it. And there's obviously some upside here, too, that they can tap into. We're going to hear from some more players from the Garden as they start to make their way to the podium. Pretty shorthanded effort for the Celtics here. Al Horford is going to play on Tuesday, so he'll make his preseason debut in the rematch between these two teams. Probably going to be a similar group for the Raptors in that game, who are dealing with an RJ Barrett injury, and maybe quickly comes into play there. But you saw most of the Raptors regulars in this one, and really none of the Celtics. And what started as a dominant game got down pretty close late as you got into the deeper portion of the Celtics bench. And that's where you start to see some guys who really have some room for growth here. And we can get into some of them before we get out of here. But I want to shout out Well, actually, no. We'll hear from Peyton Pritchard, and then we'll tell you about game.
Situation like this where most of the regulars aren't playing. I know it's an opportunity for you guys to get some run, but how much do you get out of it when you're not playing in a situation that you're typically going to play in during the regular season, when you are going to be on the floor with at least a few of those guys?
So you're asking, like, how's it different?
Well, yeah. Like, what do you take from a game like this where it's not a typical situation that you're going to see in the regular season?
Well, injuries happen and opportunities can arise, and I take advantage of times like this. So when a moment like that does come, not saying I hope it does, but if it does, I hope to not, take a step back. Like, our team doesn't take a step back. Some of us can carry the torch with that. Obviously we're a very deep team, and that's what makes us very, very good. So I think all of us need to take advantage of these situations, just because this is how you keep growing your game and showing, the world that, like, a lot of us are capable of taking that next step and doing that, but also accepting the role that our team needs and doing the best at that to help us.
Peyton, you were scoring pretty quick there in the first half, and you've kind of built that reputation that you can get hot in a hurry. Talk us through, what is it like when you notice you're in that flow state? Like, what thoughts are you having, and how do you continue that hot streak?
I mean, honestly, I didn't feel like I was in a flow state. I just was playing basketball in the other day. So I feel like if I'm in a hot streak, I probably wouldn't even miss. It'd be like 10 in a row. I ended up going, I missed like 6 threes. So I don't know. That's like 45%.
Don't you know, when I'm hot, I'm
impressive. So
jacuzzi
I definitely
hot.
had better
Let 'em
moments.
know,
But
Peyton.
I did enjoy the fact that, like I've said this before, I was taking what the defense gave me, hitting the three. I got to the rim one time, and then hitting guys for also threes and finishing at the rim.
You mentioned sort of getting the chance in these games to show that, you know, you're capable of more, but also understanding the role. How do you balance that internally? Like going from a game like this where the ball's in your hand a lot versus playing the role that you would play when the other guys are in the game. Like how do you stay motivated to improve individually while also understanding like what your role in the team is?
I feel like it's very easy. I have big dreams for myself, and, you know, people want to put limits, and I put no limit on myself, but I'll also have an understanding what's in front of me, and that we have a tremendous team that could do, you know, win another championship. And at the end of the day, I'm a winner, and I want to do whatever it takes to help the team win. So I'm not going to sit up here and say, oh, I deserve more. Like, we just won a championship. I'm going to go and do my role the best I can. And like I said, if there's an injury or anything, I want to be able to step up in those moments and help the team win another one.
You just said you would consider hitting 10 threes in a row to be a hot streak?
Or 10 shots.
Okay.
10
Either way, that'd be pretty unbelievable. So
for sure.
What's your standard of good for you? What do you consider to be like, I'm actually doing well versus like continuing to chase greatness?
Come on, Peyton.
Doing well for me is I don't like to like just look at it as one game at a time. Like for me, doing well is like a 10-game stretch of just playing great basketball, defensively, offensively. Like I can go and have a game, but then, you know, the next game, what do? Like, do I have 3 points the next game? Like that's not greatness. Greatness is doing it every night, back to back. And so that's what I'm striving for, is to, you know, finding ways to affect the game defensively and offensively, just being better this year and not having bad nights. Limit those.
Like in your role, since you're not usually taking 20 shots a game, it gets hard to consistently hit a ton of shots. So how have you found being able to chase that while like being realistic in the role that you
do something besides make shots?
I feel like it's just like you said, I'm probably not gonna get 20 shots a night. It could be 5, it could be, but it's being efficient in those. It's, you know, the stat line could look like 8, 5, and 5, and that really could affect the game. So doing that on a nightly basis and but at the end of the day, just being part of winning. And if I can look at the game and just know I impacted that game and I made a difference, then that's greatness.
Hey, this is not really about you. Your role is pretty much set, but you got guys, you talk about depth. You know, Lonnie just dropped 20 tonight. He doesn't even have a locker. You know, you got a bunch of guys that can score and do a lot of things. How do you manage expectations? I mean, you're one of the leaders in there too. Like, how do you manage everybody's expectations of like, you're all capable of doing X, Y, and Z, but you are not. You just said some nights you're going to get 5 shots, but we know what you're capable of. How do you manage those expectations of like what I need to do versus what I can do?
And the day just goes to like sacrifice. And I talk to guys all the time, like, don't become robotic in your role. Like always, every day, I take to myself, like, I'm trying to get better and better and better. But when that role is asked, you just do the best of it, knowing that you can do more, but you show up, you rebound, you hustle, knowing that, you know, we have unbelievable players, Jason, Jalen, like these guys are proven. So none of us are going to be asked to just have the ball in our hands. You got to be asked to show how you can affect the games in other ways. And, but that just still means on the off days and everything, you're improving your game. You're adding things all the time. And you just never know when your moment comes. So I tell people all the time, like, you know, you got to be ready when that time comes.
Wow. Impressive stuff from Peyton there. Definitely growth in terms of his answers and his poise and the way he's speaking as a leader on this team. I mean, he sounded like one of the veterans there, Sherrod.
Hot? That's not hot. Let me tell you what hot is, says Peyton. I love the edge and attitude that he has now. But, you know, the one thing that I think a lot of people have just kind of glossed over when it comes to Peyton Pritchard was my man asked to be out.
Yeah.
Last year, he did not want to be here because he wasn't playing. And I think often we mischaracterize guys who want to be traded as if they're being selfish. They just see themselves being able to contribute more if they're given an opportunity to do that. And Peyton, to his credit, he backed it up. I mean, he said, if you give me a chance to play more, I'm going to produce more. I'm going to impact the game more. And he's been able to do that. And we're not just talking at the end of quarters, which it seems to be Peyton time. We're talking about his ability to, frankly, put his imprint on games in a multitude of ways. He's one of, as crazy as it sounds, he's one of their best offensive rebounders. How many? I mean, it seems like there's not a single game that passes by where Peyton doesn't find a way to grab the ball in the sea of trees that he's surrounded by. You look at his shot making, obviously, his playmaking tonight. He had 9 assists along with 5 rebounds, and of course, one of them had to be an offensive rebound because that's what he does. Peyton has evolved into a guy that can do a lot of different things to help the team win. And not only does he have the talent, but now he has that swagger, that confidence. I mean, I don't know if he would have answered that question a year ago the way he did now, where, he basically said that wasn't hot. This isn't hot. Hot is when you do it over a period of time. Last year, I think he might have said something to the effect that, well, yeah, I had a good game and just hopefully I can, string another good game together sometime this month or something like that. He is on a different mental level right now. And it's part of that is him playing more. But part of it is also the fact that they won a championship with him being in a very specific and defined role. And that's something that, again, when you're looking at winning, when you're looking at trying to help your team do what no one thinks you can do, which is win a second straight title, you're going to have a different kind of confidence and belief in that because you've done it before and you've done it in the role that you're being asked to be in right now. So I think all that adds up to a very different Peyton Pritchard that we're seeing, a more confident and comfortable Peyton Pritchard in his own skin and his own ability to help this team.
How much better could he be this year, Noah? Because I think we've seen what looked like the peak of his potential last year.
The peak.
But obviously,
I don't think
he sees another level.
Yeah, and I do too. I mean, I feel like he's just scratching the surface of what he is capable of. And to be honest with you, I think like he's shown that he's kind of perfected the balance of saying, I have high individual aspirations and I want to achieve all these things and grow in all these ways, but that doesn't mean that right now I can't play in this role. And we see that every day. So I thought that was a really brilliant interview that was just, a rare, really impactful preseason interview because he basically said it. Like, you can work on things to become an all-star and to be an MVP player, but when you're on the floor, you have to know how to still play within your role. And I think we've seen that out of him. And we've seen that that's why, when there's preseason games or summer league games or whatever it has been over the years, like, he can dominate because he works on the skill set of being more than just a role player, but he's also willing to sacrifice and be a role player if he needs to. And I think that this year, if there's going to be an opportunity for somebody to take a larger role, he's at the top of the list, honestly, because think about, like, from a shot creation standpoint with Porzingis out, we've talked about this a couple of times, but like, there's a few more shots to go around. And I think it's not going to be the post guys. It's going to be guys like Pritchard or Sam Hauser down the stretch of the season that might get some additional looks. And I think he's probably like the top guy that I would imagine if there's somebody that's going to take a points per game leap this season, like, he's a very good candidate for it.
Yeah, and he talked early in preseason about improving his shot, 5 for 11 from 3. Last game, he goes 3 for 7. And I thought he shot pretty well in Abu Dhabi, too, 6 for 12 in the first game and 2 for 3 in the second game. So he's on fire from 3, whether he feels it or not. It shows in the numbers there. And that's an area where, Hauser's that 40% guy. If he can be up in that 40% category, too, that makes him all the more dangerous because the playmaking is there now. The defense come a long way. I thought Scotty Barnes gave him a tough time tonight on some of the switches, and the taller guys will, just being able to shoot right over him. But you think back to the finals, he stood up against Luka Doncic in spots there. And, if you bring some offensive contributions in that position too, that rotation. And he looks better. Hauser looks better. Cornette looks better. That's your core bench right there. And those guys have been playing together for so long now. Pritchard's been here for so long. You hear an interview like that, and you're like, man, he's truly one of the elder statesmen on this team at this point. And that's the first time I've seen or heard him sound like that, talking for the younger guys on the team who are trying to find their positions. conveying his role. Sherrod talked about it. He was in a position they were in where he didn't have any minutes, where he didn't have much of a role, and he made the most of it, whether it was just by grabbing offensive rebound or seizing more opportunity when it came. So he's a great example for some of the young guys on the roster, even a Walker. And I'll ask you about him before we get out of here, Noah. Did he convince you anymore with this performance here? Is he making some impression?
I'll just say first, just wanted to respond to what you're saying about Pritchard. Since starting to cover the team, like one of the things that I've done is go up to Maine a lot and talk to a lot of the younger players, and pretty much every single player names Peyton Pritchard as the guy that has mentored them, welcomed them, taken them in. Like from the beginning, that stood out to me because it wasn't what I would have expected. I thought it was going to be like the superstars or the starters, and from the jump, it was always Peyton Pritchard was the name that was referenced, of just a guy that has been making sure that they're adjusting and they kind of know where to go. So it aligns, what he's saying right now aligns with everything that I've heard outside of him as well. To your Lonnie Walker question, I think that what we saw today is exactly why Celtics fans have been so excited about Lonnie Walker since the contract was signed, and why every time we tweet about him or post about him, whatever, everybody's in the comments saying like, let's sign him, we have to take him, because he's a really exciting player. I mean, he had a couple plays tonight where it's like kind of took your breath away, like very beautiful finishes. He's a great shot. We're already aware of that. So nothing has changed because we knew this all about him. I think the question is, has something changed with the situation with the team behind the scenes? From our understanding right now is that he doesn't really have a valuable chance here. So it's not that it's not that they were going to see like, can he score 20 in a preseason game? It's the question is like, are they willing to spend millions of dollars and take the 15th roster spot and potentially lose that flexibility? Like that's the question. And I don't know that anything like that changed tonight. That's my concern, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the tough part, is I don't think it's anything he's doing or not doing. It's just the situation on the roster, and makes it a little perplexing, why they decide to bring him in and have him in that spot if they're not going to commit to him. Because, again, another team could come in and sign him. It's tough to imagine that he would spend most of the year in Maine, even though he said he's willing to go that route. So if that's where he's going to end up, it'll be interesting to see how that develops. And I do hope that he could stay patient and stay that committed to growing in this system, because that's still the biggest thing for him, Sherrod, I think, is understanding all the little things you have to do to play in this system on both sides of the ball, how to contribute in these other areas. Like, it's great you bring all the scoring to the table, but no rebounds, 1 assist. Like I said, it's the stuff he did yesterday that I think would start to make some impressions. A lot of guys with some opportunity could, not that anyone can put up 20 points, but a lot of guys can. And a lot of guys who can do that are out of the league because everybody who's in the league can do that. So that's the tough part for him right now. And you can tell he's working hard. You can tell he's putting in the extra reps at practice. He's out game and just going through rep after rep after rep. Like, that extra motivation is clearly there given his position. But like we've talked about over and over about.
Sherrod, has he broken up for you too, or is it just me?
Yeah. Yep. I missed him.
Bobby, I think you're silent to us.
Yeah, you're like Gershon. We can't hear you. Your presence is no longer here.
It looks like he's saying something profound though.
Yeah.
Hello.
There we go.
Yeah, we got you.
All right. Yeah, I was saying.
You're back.
Yeah, I was just saying that the situation hasn't changed much. And it's too bad. It's not anything he's doing or not doing. He's clearly getting in extra reps and all that, but there's no minutes there for him, Sherrod, at the start of the year, and you're not going to pay $12 million for that, including the tax.
Yeah, I mean, there are no minutes, and more important, there's no role. I think the Celtics, they brought him in because like they just basically had an opportunity to bring in a really good player, and a player that for whatever reason no one else was clamoring to get. Which that to me that's still kind of a head scratcher as to why he was even available. When you look at his skill set, you look at the fact that he's 25 years old. He's been in the league like 6-7 years. Guys that play as well as he does offensively, that are that young with that level of experience, you don't just sign them to Exhibit 10 contracts. You usually have to sign them to a multi-year deal because they've got so much upside, and yet they still have this pretty sizable proven body of work. So it's going to be really tough to see him go. It really is. But if you're the Celtics, again, as I mentioned to Bobby earlier, I mean, it's another example of the rich getting richer. You really shouldn't have a guy like Walker in your Exhibit 10 spot because he's so much better than that. But I give Brad Stevens a heck of a lot of credit. He was able to convince Lonnie's people to come to Boston and give him a shot. And to Bobby's point, I do hope that he's patient because I do think at some point Lonnie Walker is going to win them a game. I do believe he's that good, and I do believe an opportunity will present itself to where he can make that kind of impact. But is he going to be patient enough to wait for that opportunity? Are the Celtics going to, just do the things they need to do to put him in position for that opportunity? Remains to be seen.
Yeah, and not to throw Cornette's name out there, and I don't think there's going to be that long of a time spent in Maine or just development track for him, but it's an example like Noah talked about with Pritchard earlier in Cornette's case, that if you do take a step back in your role, change your game a little bit, adjust to the system that they play here, you can come out on the other side a different player and a more effective player as part of a winning team here. And that's what I talk about with the patience. Like if he could spend half the year in Maine even, I think he would just grow into such a different player, have a much better feel for what they want him to do and what needs to be done on both ends of the floor on this team. And that's still the thing that's missing with him. All the skills are there, the physicality's there with him, but does he know what needs to be done on any given play on either end of the court for this team? That's something that's going to take time. Everybody on this team's been here for at least a year and has a feel for what they need to do. Even Jaden Springer, who went out and hit a couple threes tonight and looks more in sync with the system at the very least. And I would still put, even though he might not be as good of a shooter or as good of a scorer, Springer ahead of Walker, just given the time that he spent here. And he might be another guy who has to go take some reps in Maine and just deal with the fact that there's not a ton of minutes here at the top end of this roster. And that's certainly going to be the case for Shireman, who's just ice cold to start his preseason career. Watson, who didn't get in until the fourth quarter tonight, is clearly going to be Maine bound. So it's going to be a pretty stacked roster up there. And you're actually looking at Tyler Lashbrook, who's going to coach them up in Maine this year, and say, like, oh, how are you going to figure out the minutes for all these guys who are potentially going to be up there? Because there could be a lot of guys from the Boston Celtics who have to spend some time up in Maine, given where the roster stands at certain positions. But the big spot is opportunity for Queta. He seized it again here tonight. Tillman looked good for much of this preseason. Probably get another look at him on Tuesday in the preseason finale. And Joe Mazzulla said today Al Horford will make his preseason debut on Tuesday. So, you talk about fitting into the system and knowing what you need to do. He's probably about as ready in that sense as anyone here. So there's nothing you're going to be looking for from Horford in terms of what he's doing out there on Tuesday, but I'm glad we're going to see him, that we know he'll be physically ready and healthy for the season. And you hope that he actually will make this appearance. Mazzulla said that that's the plan. But as 4 games went by here, and if he didn't say that before the game, I would have started to be like, all right, what's going on? Because, slow ramp up, all that. You understand it, the big playoff minutes. But if he didn't play at all in the preseason, all of a sudden you're like, all right, is he ready physically for the regular season coming up? But we'll see what he looks like on Tuesday.
Yeah. Go ahead, Noah, you got it.
No, I was going to say, just the last thing on your Lonnie Walker piece, I think the only thing to consider is that I think it's almost for sure that he's going to go to Maine off the bat. And like you said about Tyler Lashbrook, like this is a very connected Maine Celtics team to the Boston Celtics. Lou Cornette talked about it yesterday, but also Joe has made a point of it. The coaching staff is very connected. A lot of the players are going to be shuffling back and forth. I think that's part of the appeal, but I do think that there is concern that someone else will grab him, like because he's not on a 2-way, right? So if he shows out, like anybody in the NBA can take him. But I think it's almost fair to expect and assume right now, if you're following the team, that he's going to go to Maine, that he's going to play well there. He's going to play a sizable role. And then maybe at the end of the season, he's going to sign something or somebody else is going to grab him. I think that's just the realistic pathway forward right now. And I would imagine can't imagine nobody picks him up. But again, not a lot of teams have great spots. But just wanted to add that I think that we do kind of have a pathway now, at least to our knowledge of where things are going to go from here. And on the Al piece, yeah, I'm happy to hear that he's going to play, because I was starting to wonder if there was something wrong with him, if he was dealing with like tendonitis or something just random like that. So good to hear that he'll just be available, and I'm sure he'll look fine and it won't be much of a story.
Yeah, I mean, just to get out there. I mean, really, Al doesn't have to do a damn thing other than just crack a sweat, show that he can run from one end line to the other, and just get the hell out of there and stay healthy. Because at this
I'm
point,
sure it's not going to be a long stint.
No, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Al is like back on the bench with the first time out and just ended right there. Because there's nothing that Al can do that will change anyone's opinion or thoughts of his impact and his importance to this team. You literally just need him to just shake off some of the off-season rust, break a sweat, and get the hell back on that bench and stay healthy for that opener against the Knicks.
Yeah, and if you want to be at that opener against the Knicks, ring night, which is going to be the next game the Celtics play here, week from Tuesday, start looking now, game time out, start scouting out some of those prices, see what trends are going on there. I know Noah's had her eyes on this ticket ahead of opening
I bought
night.
them.
It's a tough one.
I bought them.
It's a tough one, but it's possible on game time, especially as you track the prices and which way they're going. And more often than not, the best deals are right up until and even right around game time. I've noticed that with a couple concerts that I've gone to recently, you get some great deals right up against game time or concert time in that case. So go over there right now, check out all the great features on the app, panoramic views of your seat. You know exactly what kind of view you're going to have at the game or the show. You got all in pricing, so you know what you're paying ahead of time when you're looking at the map there, and flash and zone deals that give you some great savings on top of all the best prices that you have here on Game Time. So again, go over there, download it, use code CLNS and get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code CLNS on the Game Time app. Baseball playoffs going on right now. You got hockey, Bruins are back in action, and of course, ring night coming up, and plenty of home games throughout the 2024-25 Celtics season, all available over on Game Time, the best ticketing experience on your phone. And what time is it? It's Game Time. So go check them out and use that code CLNS. And that's a wrap for us tonight. Celtics undefeated in the preseason, dominating for the most part, no matter who's on the floor, showing a bunch of lineups that have great potential here, and guys who off the bench obviously took steps behind the scenes over the summer to improve and show some strong results. This looks like a team that isn't going to miss a beat, even though, you know, the usual caveat, this is preseason. This isn't all to be taken with much more than a grain of salt, but they look in sync. They look motivated, and everybody individually, for the most part, looks improved here. So all encouraging results again continued tonight. Raptors had some, you know, Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, so there was some competition out there for them to go against as well. And they'll see them again on Tuesday, and we'll have post-game coverage of Celtics Raptors up in Toronto. That is going to be a 7:30 start. No, 7 start on Tuesday. So another early tip-off to wrap the preseason. And then a week from then, Celtics Knicks opening night. For Sherrod Blakely, check out the Big Three podcast. Noa Dalzell, check out You Got Boston, both here on CLNS Media, and check out her continued coverage of the WNBA Finals over on SB Nation. And we'll be back on Tuesday with post-game coverage of Celtics Raptors here on the Garden Report. Again, check out PrizePicks, use that code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play $5 and Game Time. CLNS gets you $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's it for us, and we will see you on Tuesday. Peace.
Wait, Amit's got an outro for us, I think.
No, he doesn't.
He said he was going to work on an outro.
He had a phenomenal game.
Phenomenal
Horford's out. I think it's an option. That did not sound like a chair.
It was a freaking chair. It does sound like a chair.